Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of the Usagi Podjimbo podcast. We're on chapter 2 of Circles. Remembrance is what it's called. Thanks for listening. If you're new, thanks for listening. If you're old, thanks for coming back and listening. This is an Usagi Yojimbo podcast where I talk all about the different issues of Usagi Yojimbo, obviously. So let's get into this. If you don't remember what happened last time, Usagi went back to repay his respects to his master, Ketsuchi, and he found out that his old master was still alive, apparently. And we leave off of that, and we end up going. Usagi leaves his master and his master's new pupil. It was like Shuga. What was his name? I forgot what his name was. His name was Shunji. I hope we see Shunji again. So Usagi ends up leaving and he wanders off into the Wanderer's Road. And he ends up, saying that, he's eventually going to he's very close to home and he can't wait to actually get home and be done with this wandering life. And he hopes to see his childhood friend, Mariko. If you don't remember who Mariko is, she is the friend and former love interest to Usagi, and Mariko actually ended up marrying Usagi's rival, Kenichi. We find this way back in the samurai story. But Usagi ends up having not a dream, but remembering a past thing that happened, experience. And Usagi is out with Mariko, and Mariko is talking about Usagi and how she invited him out here for a picnic, and Usagi wants to draw a picture of Mariko, and Mariko is like, "Oh, give me the brush," and she paints like a little mustache on Usagi, which is pretty fun. And they kind of chase each other around with the paint brushes, and they kind of stumble and fall on down a hill and into like a grassy like knoll type of hill type of area, and they're laughing and whatnot. And I love how the transition from real time to like remembering like a memory. I don't know what my words were off on that one, but there's like a cloud effect around the first and last panel on these 2 pages, and I really like it. And they kind of they look like they're about to kiss, and Usagi gets interrupted. And you hear "Hey, you there! Don't move! What's going on?" And Usagi is shocked to see Kenichi. And Kenichi is there, and Kenichi's like, "Oh, you're always around when there's misfortune. What are you doing here? Like last time when you there was a you came home for a homecoming," which is reference to a story we have not covered. We will get to eventually, but you can read that in Usagi Yojimbo Book 1. Usagi asks Kenichi, "Hey, what exactly happened?" And he says Jotaro has disappeared, and Jotaro is Mariko and Kenichi's son, who we saw in the last issue, who I called Bunny Boy. But apparently, as I hit the microphone, Jotaro has disappeared. He was picking mushrooms last night, and he is gone. And Usagi's like, "Say no more, Kenichi. I'm going to help you out." And Jotaro says, "I accept your offer." Mariko is frantic about our son's disappearance. He doesn't know exactly what's going on. One of the bandits is apparently a demon, reference to Jay, who is, I guess, a demon. I don't really know what Jay is. He's an emissary of the gods, But back at the bandit camp, we see the men talking about how the boy that they grabbed is the headman's son, and he might be useful as a hostage, but we can't keep him for long. And Jay he's like kind of skulking, like not laying, but like sitting down in the corner with his arms and legs crossed, saying that the boy is under his protection. He is not to be harmed. And he's like, "I am a servant of the gods," Jay says. And they lead me to where I need to go. And they tell me that this boy is important to get me to ascend into godhood, basically. And you see all the men he's employed. They're like, "What the fuck's going on?" Like, huh? Like they have this all big question mark. Like, "Oh, I don't know what you're talking about," They told me to kill a certain samurai called Usagi. And somehow, he doesn't know how, Jay doesn't know how, but this child has a connection with Usagi. We don't know what the connection is, but he has a connection. And one of the bandits is like, well, can we actually go raid another place? Because we're running low on food and drink. And Jay says, I don't care what you do. Just go do whatever you want, basically. And all the men are creeped out and like, he's creepy, has creepy eyes, creepy voice. Like, I don't like this guy. Let's go raid the village that we took the boy from. Their village is, weakened, and the men are out looking for him. So we'll go look and pillage this village. We see this Tokage show up, very similar to Spot. R.I.P. Spot, just saying. Poor Spot. Poor Spot died. A horrible death, I have to say. He ends up getting through into the building that Jotaro is actually stored in or being held captive in. And he's like, oh, hey, who's there? Jotaro says. And he sees a Tokage. And he's like, oh, Tokage, are you hungry? And he happens to feed him some of the rice he has that I guess the bad guys gave him. The Tokage eats it. He eats the rice ball. And we get Jay shows up very menacingly, and he is like, what's your name? And he's like, my name's Jotaro. And he's like, oh, do you know why the gods told me to capture you? I'm looking for my nemesis Miyamoto Usagi. And Jotaro's like, Uncle Usagi? And Jay is very surprised and like very angry that he knows who Usagi is. He's like, how do you know Usagi? What's your connection to Usagi? And Usagi's just a friend, but he's not even in this province at this time, Jotaro says. And he's like, oh, we'll see about that, Jay says. And you see this very, very creepy scene where Jay like closes the door slowly. And he's like, best not waste your food and give it to the lizards. You're going to not have that much food to last you because you're going to die, basically. And we get this scene where it's all black. There's like a little crack in the door. And you see Jotaro like gulp, and all you see is Jotaro's eyes, like big wide eyes, like, oh shit, like what did I get myself into, Now elsewhere, Usagi and Kenichi are walking, and Usagi asks, why hasn't Lord Akiji sent samurai to help calm the bandits? And Kenichi says, things have changed since Lord Akiji has taken over from Lord Mifune, and we find out he is lusting after new provinces rather than in helping out the old provinces that he already has control over. Kenichi says, look, let's end the facade of this friendship, Usagi. Why are you back? Exactly. He has his stern look on his face. And Usagi says the war is over. I'm through with my wandering life. I just want to settle down and live a quiet life. And Kenichi said, this is no longer your home, Usagi. And this guy runs up and says, Kenichi, the village is under attack. The village ends up getting attacked, ransacked, basically. A lot of people get hurt. They ride in with horses. It's crazy. And luckily, Usagi, Kenichi, and the other men show up just barely in time, it seems like. And they end up fighting off the brigands, the bad guys. They end up going in and actually capturing one of the men who went to go pillage their town. And Kenichi is going to go interrogate him. He is pissed off to all ends. And we see Usagi standing there, and he hears like his name being called Usagi, and he sees it's Mariko, and he is very surprised to see Mariko, and she has this concerned look on her face. And Kenichi is holding down like one of the bandits, and he is like, we're gonna take care of this. We're gonna find out all the information we need to find out. And meanwhile, Mariko is gonna go take Usagi to tell him and brief him like about what exactly they know at this moment. And Kenichi is not having it. He is very, very upset. And Mariko and Usagi end up going off to her house, and Mariko is very glad, she says, to see Usagi back, but this is like a bad time. And Usagi's like, I know what's going on. I'm sorry that Jotaro is being was kidnapped, but I'm going to do everything I can to basically help Jotaro get home. And we see them start talking about kind of like the past a little bit, and how, as well as how Jotaro is actually still alive. One of the bandits said that Jotaro was alive, and Mariko asks, "Why is Usagi coming home now?" And Lord Hikiji apparently is no longer hunting for the loyalists for Lord Mifune, and he finally feels like it's time to get off the road and have a life of peace. And Mariko says, "I'm very happy you've come back," but Kenichi and Usagi's like, yes, Kenichi still harbors the grudge we carried as children, but I am willing to bury the past. And we see Mariko say, the grudges may not be so easy to bury, and they do not all lie in the past, she says. And Usagi says, I realize uh, he resents me because I went out and served under Lord Mifune while he was burdened with the responsibilities of the village. And Mariko cuts him off, and she's like, no, they go deeper than that. You mean my feelings for you, Usagi says. And Mariko's like, don't speak of that, Usagi. He's like, why not? I've had that lock of hair that I took from you, and you had the knife that I gave you with the chipped blade, which is reference to a story in Usagi Book 1, which is Homecoming, which we will cover, obviously. I keep saying that we'll cover that. We'll cover that after this story, probably. I don't know. This whole story. I don't know. We'll see. And Mariko kind of gets happy, saying, oh, you do remember the remembrance that I gave you and stuff like that. And she gets really happy and kind of sad almost, and they embrace. And Mariko asks, why did you ever have to go away? And Usagi says, I'm a samurai. I have duties to my lord. It's like, duty, honor, those words always stand between us, Mariko says. And she gets very upset. She's like, I am a samurai too. Those words bind me as much as they bind you. And she gets really, really sad, and she's like, starts crying. And Usagi tries to go comfort her. And she's like, I am the wife of a village officer here. I am acting like some child, lovesick child, she says. We have no time for this. We have to basically pull ourselves together and go find Jotaro. As this is happening, Kenichi swings open the door and says, Usagi, we've got information from the prisoner. And he's like, I'll help organize the men, Usagi says. We get this really interesting scene, I feel like. This scene says so much without saying anything at all when it comes to words. Kenichi looks at Mariko. Mariko gets sad and kind of looks away. And for a brief moment, it seems like Kenichi gets upset that he's upset with Mariko about something that we don't know what. And like, it's obviously like Kenichi does care about Mariko. And there's obviously, they all have a history together, as former romantic interests, dating each other, whatever you want to call it, and there's something between them that they just can't really seem to get rid of. But we go from that to the men that robbed the village. They're partying it up and whatnot. And they're like, Jay, come on, drink with us, celebrate. We have much to celebrate about, it was so easily, we came across this headman and this long-eared stranger boy, and while raiding the village, and he's like, what, long-eared? And he's like, Usagi at last. And that's where our issue ends. This issue is a good issue. I like this issue very much, the middle part of the story. Like I said, there's some unrequited stuff between Usagi, Mariko, and Kenichi that will wrap up in this story. It seems like something obviously happened between Mariko and Usagi, and Kenichi just can't really let that go. It seems like, this is I love whenever they bring the old characters back, like Kenichi. I like Kenichi as a character. He's very much a flawed character, but he's also like a likable character as well. Like he's not like an asshole, you know. He's a good guy who kind of got dealt a bad hand in the end, I feel like. Uh, which you go back and read Samurai, the Samurai story, you find out he was like got kicked out of his school that he was a part of. He was a drunk, you know, stuff like that. You know, so a lot of stuff has happened to him, you know, and all of it is kind of coming to a head with Usagi returning from his journey and seeing Kenichi deal with that, and also dealing with the fact that his son is still alive, you know, and obviously there is some kind of connection with Usagi in there. Don't really want to spoil it at this time, but yeah, if you know what it is, you know what it is. Um, yeah, good issue. Not a lot of action in this issue, but a lot of really really good setup, I would say, in this issue. Like strong setup in this issue, and references to the other story that we have yet to cover, obviously. Um, and you know, it's a good story. In the next issue, we'll be going on to chapter 3. But yeah, it was a good issue, you know. Lots and lots of foreshadowing, I believe, in some aspects we won't touch upon, but there's some foreshadowing, and in my opinion, changes Usagi, the character of Usagi, and like his journey going forward, I would say, in this story arc. Uh, Personally, that's how I feel. But anyways, guys, thanks for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed. We have 2 more issues of this, issues 3 and 4. And we're done with Circles. Circles is a short story, but we're almost done. It's a good story. Hope you guys are reading along with me. If you want to help support the podcast, tell your friends, tell everybody. That's the best way to help the podcast in the long run. Share the podcast wherever you can. Tell your friends. Thanks for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed this particular episode of the podcast. Let me know how I can improve. You can find me on Facebook at Usagi Podjimbo. I'm there, and it's my group that I made for the podcast. You can check me out there. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any feedback, let me know. Give me some feedback, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Stay safe. Peace out, and go read some Usagi Yojimbo. Take care, guys.